This is Strictly Business, presented by the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. Sponsored in part by the law offices of Young Wooldridge, San Joaquin Community Hospital. And now, here's your host, Cindy Pollard, President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce.
Welcome back. Joining me now is Mike Dozier, the lead executive of the San Joaquin Valley Partnership, a public-private partnership focused on achieving a prosperous economy, quality environment, and social equality throughout California's great San Joaquin Valley. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Cindy.
It's great to see you again.
You too.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a couple of years, I think.
It has. I do appreciate you traveling down from Fresno this morning to be on the show.
It was a great trip.
So, what's outlined for the partnership? A prosperous economy, quality environment, and social equality. That's a pretty tall order.
It is. It's 3 E's. Fortunately, I don't have to do it by myself. As a matter of fact, one of the things that the partnership relies on most is collaboration. And so there are a number of people that are involved in this. It is multifaceted.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the partnership. What is it, and what do you do to accomplish the economy, environment, and social equality?
Well, the partnership was established in 2005 by then Governor Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
And it originally came together to bring private and public together to deal with the issues of the valley. And the valley, in this case, it goes from Bakersfield to Stockton.
Okay.
There are 8 cabinet secretaries that sit on the board. There's a private sector from every county. There's a public sector elected official from every county.
Okay.
And there's a number of different agencies like the WIBs, the EDCs, transportation, the COGS, that have memberships, 45-member board.
Oh, wow.
And it is all the board members are appointed by the governor. It's the only state-designated regional collaboration in California. And so there's a lot of, one of the things that we put this together, the reason we put it together is because many times in the past we were overlooked. Mm-hmm. So the San Franciscos and the LAs who had larger populations and more income and more of a voice overshadowed us. And what we've done is come together as 4 million people and 27,000 square miles. And we talk as one.
That's fantastic. So what are some of the projects that you've taken on? I mean, sort of talk to me, I guess, broadly first in terms of the purpose. What are some of the things that you look at specifically trying to accomplish? Well,
there's 10 work groups. Okay. So when we deal with this, and we do use the 3 E's that you mentioned, but we have a work group that deals with many issues. The air quality is a work group. Okay. Water is a work group. Economic development, workforce investment boards are a work group. We have K through 12s. We have higher education. We have broadband, sustainable planning, transportation, and housing.
Wow.
And so we deal with a lot of issues, and the whole purpose of this is that each of these 10 work groups can be working on their specific expertise.
Okay.
But yet when something comes up that requires a overlap of one work group or another, we're easily able to go and pull people from these different work groups to work on a project. And it's worked really well with a number of grants that we've been able to get.
Okay.
And and also as far as the advocacy.
Tell us about some of the projects or the plans that have come out of some of the work groups and maybe some of those grants. What specifically is the partnership accomplishing?
I'll tell you 2 that I think are fairly significant. The first one is the Prop 1B, I think it was, that was passed a number of years back.
Okay.
There's $1 billion identified in that. It's a transportation bill. $1 billion identified, earmarked for Highway 99.
That's fantastic.
It's the only earmark in that proposition. And so all the construction you see as you go north and south on 99 is because of that activity. Now, the partnership's not the only one that can take credit for that. The COGS did a great job with that. There were a number of different people that came in, and Connie Conway, who's who's the Republican leader in the assembly, was very active in that. But there were a lot of people that were active in it, and that's how you get things done.
Absolutely.
The other one is a thing called Smart Valley Places, and that was a HUD grant that we received in our office, a $4 million grant that pulled in. I think it was 14 cities in the San Joaquin Valley, over 50,000 population, and they dealt with sustainable planning. So each one of those cities got 250,000. They worked together, so each one of them did something different.
Okay.
There were economic development strategies. There were climate action plans. There were general plan adoptions and things like that. But the cities all worked together through that effort, and so that was a pretty nice success.
And so for those communities that were a part of that particular grant and that project, they now have sustainable community plans that they're in the process of implementing?
They are in the process. Again, it depends on what they identified as their plan. Some thought that, for example, Porterville thought that economic development strategy was something that they wanted to work on. The cities of Fresno and Clovis used it to update their general plan.
Okay.
So it was something that they all thought was imminent. Climate action plans were something that was that they were all required to do as part of recent legislation, and so they used that money to do the climate action plans in some cities, Lodi and Stockton in particular.
Okay. Now you mentioned a little bit earlier that one of the reasons that this came about, or I guess one of the results of the partnership is that now the residents and the businesses in the Central Valley have a greater voice because of the collaboration. Why is the work of the partnership so important in helping to, I guess, sustain that voice for the valley?
It's a central locator that brings people together. I mean, that's there are so many things happening in the world today, and there's so much information out there, but what's that one location that can tie everything together? And in the past, we in the Valley and a lot of other places have worked in silos. So, the economic development people worked over here, and the workforce worked over here, and the community colleges worked here. What is that one entity that can bring them all together to work on a common project? And so that's why it's important. It's really, and we're objective in the fact that we don't have a geographical fiduciary responsibility. A lot of the counties and the EDCs, they all have their main concern in their particular county, their main fiduciary responsibility. We look at the valley as a whole, and so there's not a whole lot of other places that take that as their responsibility in looking at the valley as a whole.
Right. And how is your work funded? Is it all grant funding, or is it?
It's really an interesting, eclectic amount of funding opportunities. We do it in a lot of different ways. First, Fresno State throws in about $300,000, and so not only the $300,000, but they also give us a place to have our offices that also is not included in that $300,000. The James Irvine Foundation provides us with $200,000. And then what we do is we go out and get grant funding that meets the goals that we're trying to accomplish. And so that serves two purposes. It includes our partners, and anytime you're trying to collaborate, it's always nice to be able to provide partners with funding. They become a little bit more
willing.
attentive. A little bit more attentive of what you're doing. And so that's worked really well. But and then we do some service contracts as part of our office. So the Office of Community and Economic Development is not solely hinged on the partnership. We do a number of other initiatives that tie into the partnership but aren't partnership related.
Okay. So what challenges do you find in accomplishing your work?
Well, challenges are just communication is a huge challenge. There's, as I mentioned, there's so much information that is thrown out into the world today that I'm sure that you, like I do, you look
Right.
at your email and you delete stuff just based on the subject line.
Exactly.
And so if you don't get the information out there in a way that somebody wants to read it, it doesn't happen. And we hear very often, well, what's the partnership doing? What is it? And we send information out all the time.
Regularly.
We have a website,
Right.
we have annual reports, we have a lot of things that we talk about. And unless you're working with us specifically, there's a good chance you might not know who we are. And so
Right.
that is an obstacle. Collaboration is an obstacle. I mean, anytime you collaborate, I use a metaphor, and I think that I invented this metaphor.
Okay,
And that is,
okay.
collaboration is like feeding wild animals. You know, you can't just go out there and try to feed them. They're not. They run away.
Right.
They get skittish.
Right.
And I found this with squirrels. You know, you can, if you run at them, they're taking off.
Right.
But if you put something here and you say, and you stand there and watch them eat, and then they go away, and the next day it's here. You know, over a month period or 2 months period, they're sitting on your lap and you're feeding them.
Right.
You know, whatever that wild animal is. But
Right.
you know, so they've got to trust you. They got to
Exactly.
trust your motives and,
Right.
and know that you're not getting them up on your lap to kill them. So
Good point.
So you know, and then you also have to provide a value. I mean,
Right.
so it's trust and value.
Okay. So what opportunities exist?
The opportunities.
Once you get them on your lap and you're feeding them, what's still left to accomplish?
At that point, the opportunities are endless.
Okay.
Because once we start working together and start to trust each other, then we can change the landscape and the mindset of the valley.
Okay.
It is a slow process.
Yes, it is.
Anybody that's lived in the valley has experienced the negative attitudes that pervade. And we get that from people outside of the valley.
Right.
That I always found comical because I've come from other places in the United States, and I look here and I hear people complain about the weather, and it makes me laugh.
Right.
But if you're looking at it from Carmel, you know, it is hot over here.
It is.
You know,
It is
if you're
hot.
looking at San Francisco.
It's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat.
And, you know, you can pretty much be outside 365 days of the year here in the valley.
But there's really no natural disaster, you know, except for the air quality.
Right.
I mean, that's our biggest problem is
Right.
air quality, and there are so many contributors to the air quality that it's not one thing.
Right. But we're
it's
making
many
strides in
things.
that
We
area
are.
as well.
We are.
In improving it.
The drought does not help air quality.
True.
The drought is a problem with that, and I think this week I just read where one of the big problems we're going to have this week is dust storms.
Yes.
So when the dust gets in the air, you know, we get great sunsets.
Beautiful sunsets if you can breathe to see
Right.
them. You know.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, that's a challenge. So is there anything on the wish list or on your project list to tackle over the next several months to years that you're not already taking a look at?
Our big effort right now is what we call the RICI, R-I-C-I,
Okay.
which is the Regional Industry Cluster Initiative. And in that, what we're trying to do is get the private sector to drive this.
Okay.
So they need to be able to let us know what it is that they need, and then what we try to do is bring in the people who can provide to them what their needs are. And specifically, there's an effort going on right now called CTE and Career Technical
Right.
Education.
Uh-huh.
And the private sector has indicated that they need this CTE to take place in the high schools, community colleges, up to the universities. So it's this sector articulation, because along that route you can get off that highway and go to work.
Right.
And we have a skills gap in the valley.
We do.
There's jobs here. They go unfilled because we don't have the skills to be able to fill them. So if the community colleges and the WIBs and the universities and the high schools can all get together and kind of match that up, then they can address the needs of the private sector. So this is, and that's just one of the things that we look at. I mean,
Okay.
there's regulations and everything else. What we're trying to do is get a prosperous economy based on what the needs of the industry are. So
industry
it's
are,
got to be
right.
driven by the private sector.
And are there particular industries that you've identified that you're working with, or
Yep.
what are those?
There's actually 7 industry clusters in the
Okay.
valley that we've looked at. Now, 2 of them we've kind of sat back. The 2 that we sat back is logistics and construction. And those haven't really gone anywhere from the standpoint of a cluster base. But what we've wanted to do is that in construction, there's $36 billion worth of construction taking
Wow.
place in the valley over the next 10 years.
Wow.
What we're trying to do is make sure that valley companies can have access to those opportunities.
opportunities,
So
right.
the people that have taken the charge on this have been the COGs and have been the WIBs. They've done really good jobs, as well as the EDCs, as far as identifying what those construction projects are and ways in which the companies in their area can bid. You probably have
fantastic,
run into that here in the
Yes,
chamber.
we see some of that. Yeah.
There's 5 real clusters, and one of them is the largest and the fastest growing. It's the second largest and the fastest growing is healthcare.
Oh, yes.
You might understand why that is.
Right, with the Affordable Care Act and
But then
changes there.
manufacturing, energy, water, and agriculture are right there, and we've added those as one cluster because they're so interrelated. When
that
you look
makes
at
sense.
manufacturing, for example, 65% of all manufacturing in the valley is ag-related. Agriculture is our largest industry. Water and energy feed into agriculture.
Absolutely.
So
Heavy tie-in.
we've kind of brought them together. They meet separately, but they come together as one as far as identifying what their path will be. So there's a number of different events, and these events are to attract the private sector to,
Okay.
along with the different service and public entities.
Okay. You know what? Let's take a quick break.
Sure.
And we'll come back, talk a little bit more about the regional industry clusters. And then I want to talk about the summit that you just held, I think, last month.
Right.
Okay.
Last
So we're going to take a quick break.
Great.
I'm Cindy Pollard with the Greater Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce. You are watching Strictly Business here with Mike Dozier from the San Joaquin Valley Partnership for the San Joaquin Valley. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll continue talking to him when we come back. Stay with us.